All right, everybody, and welcome to our first 2 week episode week. For this episode, we're going to be breaking down the conference championships going into Super Bowl weekend. We wanted to make sure that we got you to these guys while the games were still fresh in our minds, and didn't want to lose too much time because we know we'll have some friendly debates come the Friday episode when we get into all the awards for the year. We're going to get into these games. There were only two, so I'm sure we're going to get a little bit deeper. Obviously, these are the four best teams left in football. Games were really good and really bad, I think, at the same time this weekend.
Depending on which side of the ball you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into it, I had some high expectations for these games. I think they were, all let me down in that respect. But at the same time, I think there were things about each game I really enjoyed too. So I definitely had a good time watching the games. I know Mike had a good time watching the games. Eagles going to the Super Bowl, so I know he's super pumped as our resident Eagles fan. And that's our first game. So the 3 o'clock game, Eagles and the 49ers. I obviously missed this game. Mike got this game. I did not have a good week, 0-2. 31-7 in favor of the Eagles. I wrote down one thing, and we'll get into all the different things. There are a couple plays I want to talk on, but I mean, really, this game and what killed me the most is I was super excited for this game. This was supposed to be the two best teams in football all around. We talked last week about how each of these teams was just, I mean, they were stacked everywhere. And the injuries that hit San Francisco, I think took everything from the game, right? I don't want to take anything away from the Eagles and their win. It definitely wasn't the game that I was looking forward to watching. We knew once those first couple injuries happened, that was kind of going to be it for the game, and we made it through, but definitely not what we were looking for. I know you're excited, Mike, so let's get that excitement out of the way. Go ahead, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, look, as excited as I am, you're kind of right. I wish things had gone a little bit differently for sure. I wish that I think it's a Michael Jordan quote out there that it's like, what I want to do is I want to see you at your best when you're at your best, and I want to beat you when you're at your best, right? Because I don't want there to be any questions about it. What we ended up doing was, look, props to Hassan Reddick and the Eagles pass rush because they were pressuring Purdy all night long for all 4 plays that he was in there. But I mean, we generated enough pressure to hurt him. But I would have rather that he was able to be healthy the whole game and beat them that way. So I'm definitely with you there. Look, thrilled that they're going back to the Super Bowl. You will not hear me, have any sorts of complaints about that. But yeah, I definitely wish that had gone a different way. Some quick breakdowns from that game really quickly that I had seen was there was 13 pressures on 18 QB passes that game. 13 pressures on 18 passes. That's insane. We also had another 7 hits on the quarterback and 3 sacks. Again, this is on 18 passes, man. If the 49ers had a conservative 36 passes that game, we'd have had 26 pressures, 14 hits, 6 sacks. That pass rush is just crazy.
So I'm going to agree and disagree with you on that. So, I mean, it was a great game. The defense played great, but I think that after that first drive, it was pretty well understood that they're not going to be able to do anything to you. And at that point, as a defensive coordinator, you should just open up the floodgates. If you can't pass on somebody, stack the block, and you send the pressure, you should get a lot more pressures, right? Now, look, we talked about this. The pass rush for the Eagles is insane, right? Most sacks in the history of the team. I'm sure you know off the top of your head the ludicrous number they had, but I mean, I think they had 3 or 4 players with over 10. I mean, it's insane number. So I'm not saying they wouldn't have done that, but I mean, look, Brock Purdy in his first drive took that hit, and I think it was just one of those freak things, right, on the elbow. But I mean, after that, I mean, it changed the whole game, right? And then after Johnson goes down with the injury, I mean, at that point, it's just, I mean, all bets are off, right? Like, send the house, all right? Even when they tried to bring Purdy back in, it was clear he cannot throw the ball. So why am I going to play coverage? Why am I going to play deep? I'm not going to. You can't do it, so I'm just going to send the house every time. So, and that injury, I watched it like 4 times. We were debating, hey, was that a fumble? Was it not a fumble? His arm might have been coming forward. It looked like it got hit right before he was going forward. I'm not going to disagree with the call. I think it could have gone either way. If they'd called it, I've been like, nah, all right, like whatever they're going to call, they're going to go with. they're
But
talking
let's
about
be honest, at
nerve
the end of the day,
damage.
it wasn't going to matter, right? The
Yeah,
way that this unfolded, it didn't
right,
matter.
right, right. It didn't matter. But
Yeah.
the way he got hit, it was just interesting because he walks off and I was, a stunner or something. I mean, it didn't look at the play like he took that. But then they're talking about nerve damage. He's on the sideline. He's in the 10. He's on the sideline. He's still suited up.
His
He's
helmet
walking
was
around
still
with, yeah,
on.
he's
Yeah.
walking around with ice on his elbow. Like, all right, he's just, it's a stinger. He's going to be back in once the feeling starts coming back, and then turns out he tore his UCL, which is Tommy John's basically. I mean, he literally couldn't grip or throw a football with any type of anything.
No.
I mean, and the kid was playing so good, and it's like I wanted to see these guys at full strength. And like Josh Johnson has been on like 1,900 teams, in his career, and he's just not it. Look, man, the dude lost a backup job in Denver before he went to the San Francisco Niners to be their fourth string quarterback. All right, I mean, the dude, he's just not the guy. All right, he's not the dude. And it was clear. And he took that big hit, concussion. He was knocked out. And I mean, at that point, it was. I mean, when Christian McCaffrey's taking snaps for you because you won't have anyone left, what are we gonna do here? I mean, this isn't the game I wanted to see. So
No, and look, Shanahan's a genius. I don't think anyone can try to take anything away from that. What are you going to do when every single play you're lining up in the Wildcat, right? Like, I know that there was a brief stint in like 2012 where everyone was running 1 or 2 or 3 Wildcat plays a game. You can't do it play after play after play for 2 quarters. Like, it's what are you supposed to do?
It's reminded me of the COVID season when Denver
Yes.
lost all of their
Yes.
quarterback. They had Philip
We were
Lindsay
talking about
taking the
that,
first snap, and that's what this reminded me. Like, you don't have like they played the Saints. We all knew they were going to lose because you can't win this game without quarterback. It's the most
Yeah, when
important
Kendall
position
Hinton is
on
lining
the
up to throw
field.
the ball.
And look, I'm not saying he can't. He's not a quarterback. I mean, he's never. I'm watching them change his helmet out. I'm like, this is not going to go well. Like it's not. I mean, you don't understand the nuances. He's not taking snaps. That's not that Christian can't throw a football. It's quarterback in the NFL like that. It's just not going to work. And man, it was ugly. But
yeah, and look, like you said, they were trying to run a gimmick play offense for an entire half. If you do that for a couple plays here and there, Shanahan is the kind of guy where if he designs those up and has 2 or 3 of them in a game, I'm sure they'll work 90% of the time. But yeah, like you said, when you
Philly defense though,
no, not when the defense doesn't have to respect the pass whatsoever because they saw you changed the running back's helmet because so clearly he's trying to it was a mess. It is what it is. Like you said, props to the Eagles defense. Shanahan, I'm sorry, man. Another thing, real quick that actually maybe we could probably talk about a little bit was I had heard something kind of interesting, which was the way that the play that Purdy got hurt on, George Kittle was blocking for him. Look, George Kittle is probably a top 3 blocking tight end in the league, but that's Hassan Reddick coming at you. He's tied for the 2nd most sacks in the league. So it's apples and oranges, and it's not even close. And so one of the things that I had actually heard was like, the reason why a lot of these quarterbacks are getting hurt is they're asking, are these badly designed pass blocking plays? And that's why all these quarterbacks in the Shanahan system keep getting hurt because, they're throwing all these exotic looks at you, but you're also having weird passing schemes for it. And are the mismatches causing these quarterbacks to get hurt? I don't know. It's just something for, I figured I'd toss.
I mean, I tend to lean no.
I agree.
More with this. I mean, Trey Lance torn ACL. He's a running dude. That kind of stuff just happens. That's not a blocking thing. I think he broke his ankle this year. So I mean, again, it's not one of those blocking things. Jimmy G always gets hurt. I mean, we've talked about this for years. The guy's going to play. He's going to miss 3 or 4 games a year. He broke his ankle this time. I mean, it's just a more severe injury. But I don't think it's a blocking issue, right? And the same thing with this. Like he got hit on the arm. How many times have we seen a quarterback this year get hit on the arm like that? We've all said this isn't a serious thing. It was just the way that he hit it and the angle. It was just a freak kind of a thing.
Yep.
So I don't know if I give it a blocking. If it was something where they're taking him out at the knees or they're getting concussions every game, I may be like, all right, like this is something. But it was such a freak thing, and I'm not going to put this on Shanahan's blocking scheme or his lines blocking scheme per se, just based on the injuries that are coming out of there. So
yeah, I agree. I think for the most part, I agree with all of that. The only thing that I think that this really kind of comes down to is we saw a very similar thing happen with Josh Allen pretty early in the season, right? And Josh Allen, while he looked like an MVP type of a player the first 3-4 weeks of the season after he took that weird, shot, he kind of, fell off into a second tier quarterback. But Josh Allen's 6'5", 240. I mean, what's Brock Purdy like? 6'2", like 210. Like he's a small guy, and so I think that's more what it kind of boils down to is when there's a reason that he fell into the 7th round of the draft. It's because he's undersized. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the strongest physical body. He's not the biggest physical specimen out there. And things like this happen when you're 6'1", 220 or 210 or whatever he is. So yeah, freak accident, but it is what it is.
Special foreshadowing. I have some fun hot takes to come up in the next couple episodes when we get into some of these things that'll talk about Brock Purdy in his future in the NFL and how I think that could play out after this next offseason. So buckle up, boys and girls. It's going to be fun. Here's some things I want to touch on from the Eagles side of the ball. Rushing attack, right? Hurts 11 for 39 and a touchdown. Sanders 11 for 42 and 2. Gainwell 14 led the team in rushing, 48 yards, and even Boston Scott getting in there 6 for 21 and a touchdown. I mean, they ran the ball really well, especially against this front seven for and it was good. I mean, they're not necessarily blowing people up with their yards per carry, but I mean, they didn't get away from the run. They made sure they did it, and I get it, they were burning clock there towards the end, but they committed to the run. They got it done, and I mean, really, like you look at Sanders' 2 touchdowns, he wasn't touched on either of those touchdowns for 5+ yards, 10+ yards on both of those games, not touched. And that just goes to show how good that line is able to block, and especially some of the swings with Kelce and stuff like that. I thought was very impressive. Gainwell's the next guy up. I don't see Sanders coming back. Again, we'll get into some of these free agent discussions. We'll talk about that, but big game last week. Again, this week, 14 for 48, led the team in rushing. Sanders good, but I'm not seeing much of a difference between these two guys out there on the field. So, when Sanders wants to get paid, I just don't know. I think this was look, Gainwell can do it just as well. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I agree that Sanders probably isn't coming back. We can get into a little bit more of that a little bit later. But yeah, for the most part, I'm with you. I thought that the running attack, there was one really weird situation that I didn't like early. I think it was like a 3rd and 4 or a 3rd and 5 from right around midfield. It was in the first quarter, I think. And we ran the ball and we got like 2 yards and then we punted it. And I was like, what kind of there was a couple of questionable calls for sure for me in the run game in that first half. But it felt like after Kenny G broke off one of those 17 yarders that from there, like the floodgates opened up, if you will, as much as you can against, the best pass rush, the best defense in the league. He hit him with a big 17-yarder. I think Miles Sanders had like a 12-yarder. Boston Scott got in there for a couple of, chunk-ish plays. And so, like you said, we had 42 running attempts at 3.4 yards a clip. I think we ended the game with 150 yards rushing if you don't include the kneel downs. So I think that brought us like 148, but 150 yards for all intents and purposes. And I definitely liked the way that they stuck to the run. I think, not to get too much into next week, but I think that's going to be a big big factor. If the Eagles are going to win in 2 weeks, we're going to need to stick to the run. And I'm very pleased to see that we certainly held true to that this week. And, we got it done against the best running defense in the league.
All right, so let's get the big one out of the way. First drive, 4th and 6. Devontae Smith looks like a ridiculous one-handed catch. I mean, it was just nuts. Showed some replays, rush up, snap the ball. Long story short, they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. I'm not saying it's a game-changing drive, but you go back and watch that other angle, that was not a catch at all. And I don't think it was even a question. I don't know. He clearly, that ball came out and hit the ground. That was not a catch. They don't score there. It's a whole, 4th and 6, it's a whole different thing. Maybe Brock Purdy was there. I mean, I think that completely could have changed the whole outcome of the game. Who knows? But here's my question. Here's what I want to talk about. We agree it was a crazy looking catch, wasn't a catch. And then we saw it's not a catch. But here's my thing. Who is that on? All right. Because I think they showed 3 replays before they snapped the next ball. And those first 3 they showed, one hand coming down. You didn't see the replay where it was loose until, I think after they scored the touchdown, they put that one on national television. So whose fault is it that call gets missed? Are we blaming the officials? Is that on Philadelphia? Because I can tell you who I think it is, but that's a kind of call that changes potentially the outcome of an entire game. This wasn't a coin flip call. This was blatantly obvious, missed. Whose fault is that?
Yeah. So I think that it's a couple of things. I think that Sirianni clearly prepped his team for something like this during the year. As soon as Devontae comes down with that crazy catch, you see him going like this.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, this means, hey guys, I'm not so sure that this play is going to stand. Get your butts to the line and let's just run a play. I don't care what it is, right? And so that's a beautifully schemed, thing to come up with and prep your team for. So I give a little bit of credit to them for that. But at the same time, as soon as I saw him doing this from this, I'm watching the game 50 million miles away. I knew exactly what they're trying to do here. So therefore, why does Kyle Shanahan not know what's happening here, right? And so for me, if you see somebody, a crazy play like that, you see that they're rushing to the line. In a game like this, we've seen Shanahan become a little bit more too conservative than he should be. And it's what cost him the Atlanta Super Bowl when he was the coordinator there. It's what cost him the Super Bowl against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. And it looks like he kind of got a little timid this week against the Eagles in not trying to, get a second look at it, just throwing out the red flag. I mean, look, you only get 2 of them a game. Worst case scenario, you lose a timeout, and it is what it is. But like you said, it clearly wasn't a catch. I don't know how much of that I put on the refs. I mean, you can always put it on the refs because, hey, should they be in better position or not? I don't know, man. That was a 36-yard ball down the field. It's kind of hard to be in the right position for that. But yeah, I give a little bit of credit to Sirianni and Devontae Smith for executing a situation that they knew was going to end up happening at some point during the year. And I put a little bit of it on Shanahan for being a little bit too conservative. How do you view this one?
Yeah, so I'm glad we're not putting it on the refs. I agree. I mean, you can't put it on everything. And look, we're going to set a conversation for dealing with officials and how to fix this, mess that is the NFL officiating. None of it's going to get changed, but we'll give our points on it. Another week once we get into more of the off season, we have a minute, we'll discuss that. But here's what I put on. I think Philly did a great job getting up there. They ran the ball. I mean, honestly, I feel like they didn't even run the play as fast as they could have. It's almost like they were like, hey, maybe they're going to run this quick and they're not sure, but it almost felt like the whole stadium was like, oh, it was a catch. It was really crazy. What a good catch. Great 4th down play, conversion. I don't know if I put it on Shanahan as much. Maybe when he sees him rushing a line, he thinks to throw it, but somebody in an upper booth needs to get fired. That's how I see it. You pay people whose sole job it is to sit up there and see if that stuff happens and buzz Shanahan and say, dude, throw the flag. I'm looking at the replay. It's not a catch. And that whole time, 35 yards, Jason Kelce had to run down the field. You had plenty of time to go
down the field.
5 angles. Let's see, boom, 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 right? And it's not like, hey, there was an angle where it was clear as day that was a dropped pass in real time. And it's like, let's slow it down, zoom it. Like, nobody called it in. And so to me, somebody up top needs to get fired. You should have been on top of calling that down. You didn't. Gone.
I don't know. I may push back a little bit on that. I don't know if they had the angle on that. I mean, do you think, because we didn't
Somebody
get that?
did.
You think?
It was on TV. If the national media has it, they have it.
3 plays later.
But if a camera caught it, they have access to every feed. And probably
okay.
15 that we.
Maybe I'm a little bit out on how all that works in the moment, but I know that they didn't have it real time, so I assumed therefore, like, the cameras probably didn't catch it real time, and so, like, they had to go back and.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, any feed that they see, it's the same stuff that an official is going to look at if he does a review. They have up top, and that's the calls to challenge. 95% of the times come from upstairs, right? They look at it and go, "Hey," so, and that's what I'm saying. We saw 2 angles, one from here and then one from the sideline side. You can't tell me you couldn't have found a camera anywhere else on that other side of the field, which is the one that showed that, even if it was like, hey, not sure. Again, to me, it was clear that it wasn't. Even if it was a question, it's 4th and 6 at the beginning of the game. Maybe throw it. I don't know. I mean, I get it. He's conservative. Maybe that played into it, and maybe they did tell him, hey, throw the flag, and he just decided not to. But on a 4th and 6, you can get the ball, closer to midfield, and you make the decision to not get that, or get the call. And that's why I'm saying they just probably didn't catch it, and somebody screwed something up, and they should have caught that play because ugly. But Eagles go on and win the game. Again, wasn't the game we were all hoping for, just to see him win again. I had the Niners winning this game, but it was a coin flip. Both these teams were awesome, and I really wish we could have seen a real slugfest instead of what we got. But hats off to the Eagles, heading to another Super Bowl. So
Real quick before we move on, so I know last week we were talking a little bit about Joker versus Embiid. You know, you're a bit of a Nuggets fan. I'm a bit of a Sixers fan. What do you, and you know, my point as to why he went off the other day on Joker was because, you know, I think that Embiid felt a little bit disrespected not getting into the All-Star game. Do you think Hassan Reddick is a little miffed that, you know, he's not in that Defensive Player of the Year / first team All-Pro candidacy for defense right now? Because he came out like a cannon, man. Like, he
yeah,
had 2
he looked
sacks
good.
early,
He looked
forced
good.
fumbles early. He tied for second in the league in sacks, led the league in fumbles, and he's not even, he can't get a first team All Pro look. I don't know. Do you think him going up against Bosa, who's considered the favorite and, you know, probably will end up winning the Defensive Player of the Year, you think that lit a little bit under him this week?
Sure, could be. Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely hasn't gotten the same clout that a lot of these other edge rushers have gotten this year. And I mean, he had an amazing year. He had a good night again. I mean, he, I mean, almost single-armedly won that game for the
Right.
Eagles. So yeah, I mean, that definitely could have been part of it. I mean, I'm sure in his head he's like, "Yo, you stop disrespecting us." I mean, look, the Eagles were what 13-1 before they lost a game, and
Before they lost the game.
8-0, right, and 13-1 before Hurts goes down. I mean, this team was good all year, you know, and you know, the Niners, I think, had the clout going into that game. I mean, look at me. I was like, this is the best team in football. I mean, I even talked about recency bias before, but I think there's part of that. The whole Eagles team might have felt like, hey, like, don't forget like how good we are. We're going to come to play. So,
Yeah. Cool.
all right, let's get into this Chiefs Bengals game. 23 20 Bengals win, heading back to their second Super Bowl in 2 years. Good on the, or no, I'm sorry, the Chiefs won. Chiefs won. What am I talking about?
No.
Clearly need to get some more sleep or drink some more caffeine.
Clearly
Chiefs
you're
win,
just
Bengals lose. I'm thinking about
Josh
last
Johnson.
year all over again. Look, I mean, here's what I'll tell you. I text you about halftime and I was like, this game is boring. And you were like, what are you talking about? What game? I wasn't really impressed. I don't know, maybe in my head, I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and these weapons. And I'm like, this is going to be, you know, a firefight. You know, this is going to be high scoring. They're going to be driving down the field on each other. And it was I mean, the first half was just punt, blah, 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 blah. And it just, it was just nothing was happening. And I'm just like, man, like we're getting out of the first quarter like 7-7. You know, it's like 10 to, I don't. To me, the game, especially the first half, just seemed really, bleh, you know. I don't know, you know. It won't
No,
get
I
your
don't
take, but
know.
that's why I text him like I'm at this game, you know, like I don't know. I wasn't on the edge of my seat. Like here comes another big play. Where's that? You know, and look, maybe Mahomes' injury was it clearly impacted him, right? But you know, maybe he didn't have those big plays, so Burrow didn't have to respond with some big plays. But I wasn't as excited and enthralled with this game.
Let's talk about that for a second. I don't know if you and I are, you know, maybe we're not as in touch with the NFL rules as I thought we were, but I didn't think you were allowed to not disclose an injury. And Mahomes was clearly injured, right? Like, how did they get him off of that? Like, you know, no injury on the practice, you know, that week.
He was a full participant, so they took him off the practice squad on Friday. Look, I don't know. He was limping around. The dude, he's clearly was still hurt. His ankle was taped up. He didn't have full mobility. I don't know what they're trying to play. We all knew he was still going to be hurt. It was a high ankle sprain. There was no way he was going to be healthy. He wasn't healthy. He was limping, and it got even worse towards the end of the game. I give him mad props for playing the way that he did. I mean, look, he's a true champion. He's not going to sit for that game, and no one expected him to. But he was not 100%, and he wasn't probably even 75%. Clearly, was limited, and it limited his game. And yeah, he was hurt. Maybe that took away from the game, and it just, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I want to see fireworks. I didn't see it, so.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I was on the opposite end of that. I thought it was very entertaining, but I don't know if it's that I'm just more into I can be into defensive football as long as it's not like the Patriots Rams Super Bowl of a couple years ago, where just nothing is happening and like it's just incomplete pass, and like at least I felt like in the Chiefs Bengals game there was some running around, there was some sacks, there was some turnovers, like things were happening. It wasn't leading to a ton of points. Now I think they still had a decent score. At the end of the day, it was entertaining. But I enjoyed watching the Kansas City sack Burrow 5 times. I
Mhm.
enjoyed watching Mahomes lumber around on that hobbled ankle and still throwing for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, whatever he was. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I enjoyed the game the other day, whole thing start to finish.
It got better towards the end when I think both teams started feeling a little bit more of that pressure to go
Or
in and get the game done. Um, we touched on Mahomes and his ankle. It was clearly was a thing. Um, there was a couple of plays that I was like, all right, cool. So 4th and 6, Bengals are trying to come back. And Chase gets this ridiculous 35-yard catch. And that dude is a really good wide receiver because they were
is
there, they put it up, and they didn't even look like they had a chance. I mean, he just went up and said, "Sit down, boys. This is mine. This is a man's game, and
that I
you're
am the
out of
best
your
player in
league."
this field
And
right
I watched
now.
him just jump up over both of them like it was nothing, snag that thing and come down. I was like, yeah, I mean, that wasn't even contested. I mean, there were 2 red jerseys there. that, that
Right.
that wasn't a contested
There was
catch.
never a doubt that he
He
was
went
catching
up and
that.
said, "Give me that and sit back down." That was a hell of a catch from Jamar Chase.
Yeah. No, he's a great player, and it's funny because he had a weird roller coaster going into his draft. It was, hey, he's clearly the number one going into the draft, so he sits out that year. Devonte Smith wins the Heisman and looks excellent. Now he was still considered like the 1A 1B. He was.
Mhm.
I think Jamar was still clearly considered better, and he gets drafted super high. But then he has a lot of drops in the preseason, and people are talking about, well, he has a ton of drops. Apparently, he's not able to see the ball because
It's
when you
got
throw
white
this,
on it.
yeah,
I remember that.
yeah, right. And
Can't
so
catch
that was
white football.
yeah, and so then next thing you know, he's blowing up the league for 1,400 yards as a rookie. It's like, stop it, guys, come on. Like, I get it. He had a couple of bad games in preseason, but look, man, it's preseason. That's what they're there for, is to shake off that rust. So yeah, shout out to Jamar Chase. I think he's in that conversation for top 5, top 10 wide receivers in the league right now. And so yeah, he's really really good. Him and Joe Burrow just have that connection. I think that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are probably the best wide receiver quarterback tandem in the league right now. I know Justin Jefferson's probably the best wide receiver, but
Mhm.
Kirk Cousins isn't Joe Burrow. Tyreek Hill is no longer with Patrick Mahomes, and so I would probably give that title to them off the top of my head. We could sit down and maybe talk about that later, but he's a great player for sure.
I think this is a debate that needs to happen someday for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the dude's ridiculous. So top 5 or 10 is good. I think the MVP for that game though has to go to Chris Jones.
Certainly
Um,
does.
Here's the thing: 2 sacks, including the final hit to seal the win.
Yep.
Um, I don't know how many people realize this, but in his previous 13 postseason games, 2 sacks,
Nothing.
not a single sack. And you want to talk about somebody being disrespected? I mean, this guy, they've been to 4 or 5 straight AFC Championship games. They've only been to this will be their 3rd Super Bowl, but I mean, they got knocked out last year, and he wasn't getting the job done. He wasn't getting sacks. Maybe he thought there was some controversy last year, but look, man, like you want to be the guy who's supposed to lead this defense. You want to be considered an all-time great, like you're being paid to be. You got to be the guy that when you need to make a move, you got to get it done. And look, they got after Joe Burrow. That line was missing some people, and they didn't protect him, you know, most of the evening. But look, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, and you want to be that guy, you got to get the play done, right? Von Miller was that dude, and when it came down to get plays done, he got in there and he got it done. And Chris Jones did. He played great. He went in there, he made it happen, and he got the big plays when it mattered. Just like happened to them last year when Aaron Donald came in and made it happen. When you need a play to happen, you need your stars to get it done, and he got it done. It was a hell of a hit, 2 sacks. I think he definitely MVPs and seals this win for them.
No, I definitely agree. I think his 2 sacks, he also had 3 tackles for losses. That's
Mhm.
huge. He's been so good this year, and nobody knew it. And it's funny because you and I were talking the other day, and you're like, why is he in Defensive Player of the Year? I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? You're like, yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. I'm like, no, Ben, you're the wrong one. You're like, what? I'm like, yes, he's been amazing this year. And so I think he had like 15 sacks this year, 15 and a half sacks, something crazy. He had a lot
Yeah.
of sacks.
That's because I thought Hassan Reddick should be in that conversation and not
Oh
him. But
no, it's
hey,
not.
hey,
Stop.
that's
No,
another
you did
conversation for another
not.
time.
Stop it. Stop it. Don't try to get our us Eagles supporters to be on your side here. But yeah, no, I've thought that I've thought that Chris Jones has probably been the second best defensive tackle in the league for 3 or 4 years now. I think Aaron Donald was clearly the best,
Clearly, I mean that's not a
clearly the best.
conversation.
And so after that, for a long while, I thought it was Fletcher Cox, but Fletch hasn't been the same Fletch in. I mean, he's been 3 and 4 years ago. He was really good. He took like a small step back, and I think Chris Jones took a step up. And then, when they went to the Super Bowl, won that Super Bowl, that was about when I saw the change. And then since then, Fletch is, he's a guy now. He's a good guy, but he's more or less a guy.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris Jones for me is clearly the second best defensive tackle in the league. He's clearly a top 3 defensive player this year. I think he probably gets the runner up. I think Micah should. Micah shouldn't finish third, but I think Hassan Reddick should. But I think Micah's going to end up finishing third. And so, yeah, no, he's been great this year. And yeah, very, very validating for him probably to have that big game this week when it really mattered a lot for him.
Perfect. And as we wrap it up here, just a quick note: Joe Burrow, 2 picks, definitely not his best game. Maybe it was what I thought this game was going to be. I thought the Bengals were going to go in there and just smoke the Chiefs with Mahomes not being able to compete. And, that Cincinnati offense just wasn't doing what they needed to do. Joe Burrow didn't do what he needed to do. And they allowed a half an ankle Mahomes to get in there and get the win. So should be a good game, man. Chiefs, Eagles, we'll break it down once we get a little bit closer to the Super Bowl. So that Friday before the Super Bowl, come looking for that episode. We're going to break down that game. We're going to spend the entire episode just talking about each of these teams, how we see this game going to be playing out. We'll make our picks for who's going to host that Lombardi at the end of the day, and who are going to be crowned champions. So we'll see you then. Come join us on Friday. We're going to be breaking down all of the awards for the year, a couple of our own that we made up just to make things a little bit more fun. Forget the Pro Bowl. It's a joke. Nobody wants to watch it. Nobody cares. Get out of here with that nonsense. Let's hand out some awards. We'll see you guys on Friday.